The species that watched from the shadows, the ancient station drifted silently through the void between galaxies, invisible to most forms of detection. Its crystalline walls hummed with energy that had been sustained for over 10,000 years. This was observation post Omega 7, home to the Galactic Monitoring Council, and today marked exactly 2 centuries since they had first detected signals from a small blue planet in the outer rim of the Milky Way. Observer Vex-9 extended one of his translucent appendages toward the holographic display that materialized before him. His species, the Velta, had evolved from silicon-based lifeforms on a world of living crystal. Their bodies resembled walking gemstones, capable of processing information at speeds that organic minds could barely comprehend. For 3,000 years, Dex-9 had served the Council, watching over developing civilizations with the patience that only immortal beings could possess. The display showed a familiar yellow star system, the 3rd planet from the Sun, glowing with the soft blue of water and the swirling white of clouds. Earth, as its inhabitants called it, had become something of a curiosity among the Council members. Most primitive civilizations followed predictable patterns of development. They discovered fire, developed agriculture, built cities, and eventually reached for the stars. The process typically took millions of years, with most species destroying themselves before achieving true interstellar capability. Humans had been different from the beginning. When the Council first detected their radio transmissions in the early 20th century by human reckoning, the signals had been crude and scattered. Standard procedure suggested they would need at least 50,000 years to develop meaningful space travel, assuming they survived their own technological adolescence. The Council had assigned Vex-9 to observe them as a routine monitoring assignment, expecting nothing more than another entry in their vast database of extinct civilizations. But the humans had surprised everyone. Within a single century, they had progressed from basic radio to splitting the atom. They had gone from their first powered flight to landing on their moon in less than 70 years. Such rapid advancement was unprecedented in the Council's extensive records. Even the most aggressive species in their database had taken millennia to achieve similar progress. X-9 adjusted the temporal viewing array to focus on the current state of human development. What he saw made his crystalline form pulse with anxiety. The humans had not merely continued their rapid advancement, they had accelerated it beyond all reasonable projection. Their planet was now surrounded by a network of space stations and orbital platforms. Their ships, while still primitive by galactic standards, were exploring their outer solar system with increasing sophistication. The most disturbing development was their recent breakthrough in quantum mechanics. The Council's predictive models had suggested humans would not discover faster than light travel for another 10,000 years, yet their recent experiments with quantum entanglement and space-time manipulation indicated they were on the verge of achieving interstellar capability within decades, not millennia. A soft chime echoed through the observation chamber, indicating an incoming communication from the Council's central authority. The air in front of Vex-9 shimmered, and the imposing figure of Archon Corvex materialized in holographic form. Corvex belonged to the Eternal Hierarchy, a species so ancient that they claimed to have witnessed the birth of the first stars. His form was humanoid but stretched to impossible proportions, with skin that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Observer Vex-9, Corvex's voice resonated with the weight of eons. Your reports on the human species have reached the highest levels of the Council. The Arshanet is concerned about the implications of their rapid advancement. Vex-9's form flickered with acknowledgement. Archon, the humans, continue to exceed all projections. Their technological development curve is unlike anything in our records. If current trends continue, they will achieve faster-than-light capability within the next 50 years. That is precisely what concerns us, Corvex replied. A species that advances this rapidly is inherently unstable. They lack the wisdom that comes from slow, careful development. They are likely to become aggressive expansionists, potentially threatening the careful balance we have maintained in this galaxy for millions of years. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent alert from the station's monitoring systems. Dex-9 quickly accessed the sensor data, his crystalline consciousness processing the information in microseconds. What he discovered sent shockwaves through his entire being. Archon, Dex-9 said, his voice carrying an uncharacteristic tremor. We have a problem. The humans have just achieved their first faster-than-light jump. Corvex's form solidified as he leaned forward. That is impossible. Our calculations showed they needed at least another century. The data is unmistakable. Dex-9 responded, displaying the sensor readings for Corvex to examine. A human vessel just translated from normal space to faster-than-light travel using a method we do not recognize. The energy signature is completely novel. The implications hit both beings simultaneously. If humans had achieved FTL travel 50 years ahead of the most optimistic projections, what else were they capable of? How many other assumptions about their development were wrong? Corvex's form began to fade as he prepared to return to the council chambers. Continue monitoring, observer. We need to understand exactly what we are dealing with. If the humans pose a threat to galactic stability, the council may need to consider intervention. As the hologram disappeared, Dex-9 turned his attention back to the human solar system. He increased the resolution of the monitoring array, focusing on the area where the FTL signature had originated. What he saw defied explanation. The human ship that had made the jump was not alone. 3 more vessels were visible, each with a different design, but clearly of human origin. They were not experimental craft, but appeared to be production models, suggesting that human FTL technology was already being mass-produced. How had they developed and manufactured multiple FTL-capable ships without the Council detecting the industrial infrastructure required? Dex-9 began a deep scan of the human solar system, searching for answers. What he discovered made his crystalline form dim with shock. Hidden among the asteroid belt were manufacturing facilities that had somehow escaped detection. These installations were producing not just ships, but advanced components that rivaled Council technology in sophistication. The humans had not simply stumbled upon FTL travel through random experimentation. They had developed a comprehensive understanding of advanced physics and engineering. Their progress was not the result of lucky accidents, but of systematic scientific advancement guided by intelligence that seemed to operate on multiple levels simultaneously. More disturbing was the realization that human sensor technology was far more advanced than previously assumed. Several of their installations appeared to be specifically designed for long-range detection and monitoring. If their sensors could detect Council observation posts, then the humans might already know they were being watched. This possibility sent a chill through Dex-9's consciousness. The Council's entire approach to managing galactic civilization was based on the assumption that primitive species were unaware of their observation. If humans had detected the monitoring network, they might have been deliberately concealing their true capabilities while studying their watchers. The implications were staggering. Instead of a primitive species stumbling toward the stars, the Council might be dealing with a civilization that had been conducting its own covert observation program. The humans might know more about the galactic community than the Council knew about them. Dex-9 began emergency protocols to alert the full Council when his sensors detected something that made his crystalline matrix fracture with terror. Multiple FTL signatures were appearing throughout the galaxy, not near Earth, but near other Council observation posts. The signatures were definitely human in origin, but they were appearing simultaneously across distances that should have required years to traverse. Even with FTL capability, the humans had not just achieved faster-than-light travel, they had somehow developed instantaneous transportation across galactic distances. They were not only aware of the Council's observation network, but were actively investigating multiple posts simultaneously. As Dex-9 watched in growing horror, the human ships began to converge on observation post Omega-7. The species that had been quietly watching from the shadows for 2 centuries was about to meet the beings they had been observing. The question was no longer whether humans posed a threat to galactic stability, but whether the galactic community was prepared for contact with a species that had been studying them while pretending to be primitive. The station's proximity alarms began to sound as human ships materialized just outside the facility's cloaking field. Dex-9 realized with crystalline clarity that everything the Council thought they knew about human development had been carefully orchestrated misdirection. The humans had not been stumbling toward the stars. They had been planning their entrance onto the galactic stage with the patience and cunning of master strategists. The age of human observation was over. The age of human revelation was about to begin. When the watched became the watchers, the human ships materialized outside observation, post Omega-7 with a precision that defied everything the Council understood about faster-than-light navigation. There were 12 vessels in total, each one different in design but unified in their obvious technological sophistication. The largest ship positioned itself directly in front of the station's main docking bay, while the others formed a perfect sphere around the ancient facility. X-9 watched through the station's sensors as the lead ship began broadcasting on frequencies that should have been impossible for humans to know. The transmission was not only in the universal mathematical language that the Council used for first contact, but it included proper pronunciation guides for over 30 different galactic species. Someone aboard that ship understood not just that they were being observed, but by whom. Observation post Omega-7 came a clear voice speaking flawless Council standard. This is Admiral Maya Chen of the United Human Exploration Initiative. We request permission to dock for a long overdue conversation. The words hit Dex-9 like a shockwave. The human had used the station's classified designation, spoken in a language that was supposedly unknown to their species, and done so with the confidence of someone who had been planning this moment for years. The crystalline observer's form flickered with uncertainty as he realized the full scope of how completely the Council had been outmaneuvered. Emergency protocols activated throughout the station as other Council observers emerged from their monitoring chambers. Corvex materialized again, his ancient form radiating barely controlled panic. How did they find us? Our cloaking technology has been perfected over millions of years. Dex-9 accessed the station's deep archives, searching for any indication of how their security had been compromised. What he found was even more shocking than the human arrival. Our logs show microfluctuations in our cloaking field dating back over 150 years. The variations are so subtle that our systems classified them as natural space phenomena. You believe the humans have been probing our defenses for over a century? Corvex asked. his voice carrying a note of something the immortal being had not experienced in millennia. Genuine surprise. Before Vex-9 could respond, Admiral Chen's voice returned. Archon Corvex, Observer Dex-9, we know you are discussing our arrival. Please understand that we have not come here as conquerors or with hostile intent. We have come because it is time for our species to have an honest conversation about the future of this galaxy. The fact that the human knew their individual names and could somehow monitor their private communications sent waves of shock through both council members. Corvex's form solidified into its most defensive configuration. This is impossible. Our communication protocols are quantum encrypted using methods that predate most stellar formations. Admiral Chen's response came with what sounded remarkably like gentle amusement. Archon, with respect, your quantum encryption is based on principles we discovered and abandoned over 70 years ago. We have been listening to Council communications since 1987 by our calendar. We know about your debates regarding intervention in human development. We know about the 43 extinction scenarios you have projected for our species. We also know that 12 of your member species have been preparing military responses to our perceived threats. The human had just demonstrated knowledge of the Council's most classified discussions and strategic planning. Vex-9's crystalline matrix began processing the implications at maximum speed. If humans had been monitoring Council communications for decades, they possessed not only advanced technology, but also the strategic patience to gather intelligence while appearing primitive. How, was all Corvex managed to say. Because you taught us, Admiral Chen replied. Every sensor scan you conducted of our planet gave us data about your technology. Every monitoring probe you sent into our solar system provided us with examples of your engineering. Every communication you transmitted taught us about your languages and methods. You have been our teachers for 2 centuries, and we have been excellent students. The docking bay doors opened without any input from the station's crew. The human ship moved forward with impossible precision, demonstrating complete control over Council technology. As the vessel settled into the docking bay, Vex-9 realized that the humans had not just detected the observation post, they had been studying it long enough to understand its systems better than its operators. Admiral Chen emerged from her ship, accompanied by a small team that included representatives of different human ethnicities and specializations. She was a woman of average height with graying hair and intelligent eyes that seemed to take in everything around her. Her uniform was simple but well made, and she moved with the confidence of someone who had been preparing for this moment her entire career. Archon Corvex, Observer Vex-9, she said, approaching them with the careful respect of a diplomat but the assurance of an equal. Thank you for allowing us aboard your station. We have much to discuss. Corvex's form towered over the human admiral, but Admiral Chen showed no intimidation. You speak of teaching, but we did not intend to provide instruction. We were observing a primitive species following standard monitoring protocols. Admiral Chen smiled, and the expression was somehow both warm and predatory. That is exactly the problem, Archon. Your protocols assume that intelligence follows predictable patterns. You observe species expecting them to develop along paths that your models predict. But human intelligence is fundamentally different from what you have encountered before. She gestured to one of her team members, who activated a holographic display that showed the development of various galactic civilizations. Your records show that most species require millions of years to progress from basic tool use to space travel. The few that develop faster typically destroy themselves through warfare or environmental collapse. Your entire monitoring system is designed around these assumptions. The display shifted to show human development curves, but humans do not follow linear development patterns. We advance through what we call punctuated innovation, long periods of steady progress interrupted by sudden leaps forward driven by individual genius, cultural exchange, or external pressure. Your models could not predict our advancement because they assume intelligence operates the same way across all species. Dex9 processed this information rapidly. The human was describing a form of development that the Council had never encountered. Most species advance gradually, building knowledge systematically over geological timescales. The idea of a species that could make sudden intuitive leaps was outside their experience. Admiral Chen continued her explanation. When we detected your observation probes in 1823, we realized we were not alone in the universe. But instead of trying to contact you immediately, we decided to study you first. We wanted to understand galactic civilization before joining it. You have been aware of our presence for over 200 years, Corvex asked, his ancient composure finally cracking. We have been aware of your presence since Napoleon was Emperor of France, Admiral Chen confirmed. We detected gravitational anomalies from your FTL drives, electromagnetic signatures from your sensors, and quantum fluctuations from your communication arrays. Your technology was advanced, but it was not invisible to minds that knew what to look for. The Admiral's team activated additional displays showing human scientific advancement. We reverse-engineered your sensor technology to develop our own detection systems. We analyzed your communication protocols to learn your languages. We studied your ship designs to understand your engineering principles. Every piece of data you collected about us gave us equal information about you. Dex9 began to understand the scope of human achievement. They had not simply developed advanced technology. Through random experimentation, they had conducted a systematic intelligence gathering operation spanning centuries, using their observers as unwitting teachers while concealing their true capabilities. But why maintain the deception? Corvex asked. Why allow us to believe you were primitive when you possessed such advanced capabilities? Admiral Chen's expression became more serious, because we needed to understand your intentions toward developing species. We discovered that the Council has a history of intervention. When civilizations advance too rapidly, 47 species in your records were subjected to technological suppression or population reduction when they were deemed threats to galactic stability. The human had just revealed knowledge of the Council's most closely guarded secrets. The intervention protocols were known only to the highest levels of Council leadership. The fact that humans possessed this information suggested they had penetrated the organization far deeper than anyone had imagined. We also discovered something else, Admiral Chen continued. The Council has been struggling with several unsolved problems for millennia. Dark matter, manipulation, quantum consciousness transfer, and interdimensional energy harvesting. Your member species have made little progress in these areas, despite thousands of years of research. She gestured to her team again, and new displays appeared, showing complex mathematical equations and engineering schematics. Human scientific method approaches problems differently than your species. We test, fail, adapt, and iterate rapidly. We share knowledge freely between individuals and cultures. We combine intuitive leaps with systematic verification. The displays showed human solutions to problems that had puzzled Council scientists for eons. Dark matter could be manipulated using quantum resonance cascades. Consciousness could be transferred by treating thought patterns as quantum information. Interdimensional energy could be harvested through controlled spatial distortions. You solved these problems? Vex-9 asked, his crystalline form pulsing with excitement despite the circumstances. We solved these problems decades ago, Admiral. Chen replied. We have been waiting for the right moment to share our discoveries. We believe that galactic civilization would benefit from human innovation, just as humanity has benefited from studying your achievements. Korvax stared at the human solutions, his ancient mind struggling to process the implications. You could have revealed yourselves at any time. You could have demanded recognition as equals. Why choose this moment? Admiral Chun's expression became grave. Because our intelligence networks indicate that several Council species are preparing military action against Earth. They believe humanity poses an existential threat to galactic stability. We came here to prevent a war that would benefit no one and cost millions of lives. She paused, allowing the weight of her words to settle. We also came to propose an alternative. Instead of intervention or conflict, we suggest cooperation. Human innovation combined with Council wisdom could solve challenges that neither of us can address alone. The docking bay fell silent as the two ancient beings absorbed the full scope of what the human admiral had revealed. The species they had been observing as primitives had been conducting their own observation program. The civilization they had considered a potential threat was offering partnership. The beings they had assumed were centuries behind Galactic. Standards had already surpassed them in crucial areas. Vex-9 was the first to speak. Admiral Chen, you have presented us with information that will require extensive analysis and consideration by the full Council. But I must ask, if humans have possessed these capabilities for decades, why have you not begun expanding into the galaxy? Admiral Chen smiled again, and this time the expression was purely human warmth. Observer Vex-9, we have been expanding into the galaxy. We currently have research stations in 17 star systems and mining operations in 5 others. We simply made sure they were invisible to your monitoring technology. The final revelation hit both Council members like a physical blow. Humans had not only achieved advanced technology and identified the galactic community, they had quietly established an interstellar civilization while appearing to be confined to their home solar system. Admiral Chen extended her hand toward Korvax in the human gesture of greeting and cooperation. Archon, the age of secret observation is over. The question now is whether the future will be shaped by conflict or collaboration. Humanity chooses collaboration if the Council is wise enough to accept the offer. As Korvax slowly reached out to accept the human gesture, Vex-9 realized that everything was about to change. The species that had been watching from the shadows had become the teachers. The civilization that had been considered primitive had become the innovators, and the beings that had been feared as threats had revealed themselves as potential partners. The galaxy would never be the same. Asterisk.